It is amazing how many drivers, even at the Formula One level, think the brakes are for slowing a car down. That's a quote from Mario Andretti talking about how the throttle and the brake pedal are also involved in rotating a car and helping you change direction. It's not just the steering wheel as you might think. In today's video, we're going to cover 3 things you don't fully understand about steering. Timestamps, as always, are down below. And the first thing I want to talk about is actually ergonomics and how we grasp the steering wheel. Now, in this Lotus Emira, we don't have a perfectly round steering wheel. We have this, slightly hexagonal shape because of the digital dash behind it. They want this cut out to match that. But a few things here. Number one, I want your seating position to be such that when you are seated comfortably, you can have your wrists hang above the top of the steering wheel like so. Without having to really push your arms forward and round your shoulders, you should be able to relax in the seat and do this. Now, depending on your height, depending on what the car is, that may not be a perfect ideal you can actually achieve, but it's something you should strive for, because what a lot of people do is they'll either be way too far away and have the steering wheel like this, or they'll be really, really close and now their arms they're like T-Rexing, right? So I'm 6'1", so in almost all cars, I like the steering wheel all the way out. And we'll have a separate video in terms of how to set up your seating position for optimal ergonomics as well. But today we're just talking about steering. The second thing is you should actually be driving at 9 and 3. The whole 10 and 2, I don't know where people got this from, because it is, if you actually try driving like this, it is so imbalanced and awkward. Driving at 9 and 3, you'll instantly feel like you have more control. Now, you don't have to be super strict. Like here, I can actually move my hand, and boom, not a big deal, right? But generally speaking, you want to maintain 2 hands on the wheel, and you want to generally be at 9 and 3. If you need to do a tight turn, yes, you can shuffle, as I'm doing so here. But in all other times, you should be 9 and 3. You shouldn't be like this. You think it looks cool, you have less control. It's also just not good for your spine, your posture, etc. 9 and 3 is where you should be. You may want to go down here, but if someone jumps up all of a sudden from the side, you don't have the same reaction speed versus if you were at 9 and 3. The best control happens at 9 and 3. That's why race car drivers are always at 9 and 3. And just driving around town, there's no harm in being at 9 and 3. But I do not want you to death grip the wheel, because by doing so, you're actually going to have worse control of the car. You want to lightly touch the steering and guide it rather than really manhandling it. And that brings us to actually point number 2, which is the 4 different elements of steering. When it comes to the throttle and the brake, there's usually a one-way communication, or primarily a one-way communication, where you are telling the car what you want it to do. The steering is somewhat the same in that, if I turn the wheel, the car is going to understand what I want it to do, and it's going to go in that direction. However, steering, unlike any other input in the car, more so than the transmission, the throttle, the brakes, the steering has much more communication. There's much more that it can tell you about what the car is actually doing, particularly at the front end. And this is one of the 4 elements of steering. So the way I like to describe steering is across these 4 domains. Let's actually start with number 1 being feedback. Feedback is the sensation through the steering wheel of what the front tires are doing. So in this Lotus Emira, we have a hydraulic steering rack, which tends to have more feel and feedback than electric power steering. However, if you go to older cars that have manual, as in unassisted steering racks, they can be very heavy at low speed, but they have the best feedback. If you see my videos reviewing a Lotus Elise or Acura NSX, I absolutely adore the steering racks in those vehicles. Now, feedback, there's actually 2 types. The first is going to be your texture to the road. Can you feel all the little intricacies, the camber changes, what is happening on the road? And again, Lotus does an excellent job with this, with its hydraulic steering, as does McLaren, the only 2 manufacturers still making hydraulic steering racks in modern cars. And number 2 is your dynamic load up. So if I were to brake hard, get a lot of weight on the nose, and then turn, the steering should be heavier to indicate that I'm loading up the front tires more. Unfortunately, given the way that this Lotus Emira is set up from the factory, you actually don't get much of that at all. The dynamic load up is very much lacking in this car, and my Mazda Miata and also even my Mazda CX-50 are two cars that have much better dynamic loading than my Lotus Emira, and both of those are electric power steering. And if you guys are new to the channel, I very much enjoy steering. In a prior life, I was doing plastic surgery. I very much, honed dexterity and surgical skill sets, and I very much enjoy the finer nuances of that feedback through the wheel. And yes, all three of my car purchasing decisions are influenced by steering feel, because all three of my cars have excellent steering in different ways. So that's feedback. Number two is the speed, the ratio of the steering rack. So how much do I need to turn for the car to actually translate to a direction change? Modern Ferraris have very fast steering ratios, meaning a little turn makes a real big change. It can actually cause the car to feel a little bit darty, however, which I'm personally not a big fan of. Older cars tend to have much slower steering ratios, whereby you have to turn a lot to get a little bit of movement. And usually if they are unassisted, even more so because of mechanical leverage. So if you drive a NSX, as an example, you have to really shuffle that when you're driving around the canyons because it has such a slow steering ratio. The next one is the weighting. How much effort does it take to actually move the wheel? This is tied to the dynamic weighting of when you are pushing a car harder and you want to feel what's going on at the front end. Again, the Lotus Emira doesn't do this, but that is increasing the weighting as you're getting more weight over the front tires. Luxury cars tend to have a very light steering weight. Sports cars tend to have, on average, heavier steering weights. There are exceptions to that, of course. These are just guidelines, not absolute hard and fast rules. Little heel toe into second, get the weight on the front. And I want you to pay attention there. There was a little bit of correction in the wheel because based on the throttle, I was able to steer the car, but that's coming in part number 3. Going back to those 4 elements of steering, we covered feedback, we covered the speed, we covered the weighting, and the final thing is the accuracy. Meaning, how direct is the steering? Is there any slop? If I have an input, does that immediately translate to an output? In a Porsche GT3 RS, it's very sharp. Any minor input is an immediate translation. In a luxury sedan, it's actually, there's a bit of a lag, right? I mean, give an input and it takes a little bit of time for it to actually start turning. And is there any slop? Older cars, oftentimes, things are more worn, bushings, etc. You can actually turn the wheel quite a bit and the car keeps going straight. So that's all directed to the accuracy of the steering rack. And that brings us to point number 3, which is how do you actually steer a car without just the steering wheel? Now, you're not doing this as frequently on the streets because in order to do this, you have to get a car very close to its limit. And the 2 ways you're mainly doing this are, number 1, with trail braking, where you are putting more weight on the front and having very little steering angle, you can actually get the car to rotate quite a bit. This trail braking rotation is one of the more advanced methods of getting a car to turn. Using throttle in a rear-wheel drive vehicle to induce more rotation is perhaps a little bit more approachable. In this car, which is mid-engine rear-wheel drive, or in a GR86 Mazda Miata, which are front-engine rear-wheel drive, oftentimes when you're giving more throttle, the rear end, especially if it has an LSD, a limited slip differential, it can help you rotate and bring that tail around. Now, if you're driving an all-wheel drive car or a front-wheel drive car, there are some differences, right? Giving more throttle to a front-wheel drive vehicle is just going to usually result in more understeer, unless you're at lower speeds and you have a very aggressive LSD. Then there are exceptions where it can actually help you rotate more at the front end, but not at the rear end. Again, all these little nuances, but overall what you need to know is that regardless of the engine layout, the drivetrain layout of the vehicle you're driving, your throttle and brake can help you induce rotation. And if you watch some of the track videos I have, you'll see me doing this regularly with my car and with other cars. And having that little bit of correction is usually due to, number 1, I'm either entering a corner and I'm braking, trail braking, where you get hard on the brakes and you slowly start letting off the brakes to really help that that rotation occur. Sometimes if you get too much rotation, you'll then have to correct the steering and turn back the other way so that you don't spin out. Same thing when you're mid-corner and at corner exit when you're getting on the throttle. You may sometimes get too much rotation, you'll have to counter steer or neutral steer. Neutral steer is where your steering wheel is essentially straight and the car keeps rotating. That is a beautiful, beautiful place to be. It is one of the fastest ways around a corner. And counter steer is when you have a little bit too much rotation, you got to bring things back so you don't spin out. And if you start drifting, that's requiring a lot of counter steer, but drifting is a very, very slow way around a corner. So you don't generally want to do that because of the coefficient of kinetic friction versus static friction. So when you are drifting, you're now using the coefficient of kinetic friction, which is giving you less grip than if you were at static friction, right? So now there's also slip angle, which is why we're trying to get neutral steer. And essentially having the optimal amount of slip angle with something like neutral steer is the quickest way around a corner. Too little means you're leaving time on the table, and too much with drifting also means you're leaving too much time on the table. Now, if you are newer to driving, I don't want you to really worry about the throttle and the brake helping you induce rotation just yet. That is something that you should generally be doing on the racetrack or on autocross anyways, not on public roads. And of course, always maintain your traction control. Don't get a hero complex, turn that off because bad things can happen, right? But as you do start getting more experience under your belt, eventually when you feel comfortable and not a moment before, you may want to consider turning off traction control at the racetrack, not on the street, but at the racetrack or at autocross. And again, do this at your own risk, your own liability, etc. I'm just telling you what I have done for myself and what has worked well for me. Turning off traction then allows you to start playing with those limits. Start exploring more understeer, oversteer, trail braking, and playing at the limit to increase your confidence and ability to rotate the car without having to use the steering. Now, a few final things before we wrap up. Many people will say they can't really feel much through the steering wheel. And no, I don't think you need to have, a history in plastic surgery or be an artist or a musician or whatever to really feel what's happening through the steering wheel. What I would say is that you want to essentially hold the steering wheel lighter and not death grip it. Because when you death grip it, you actually overpower whatever nuanced feedback it's trying to give you, the communication that the car is telling you back, right? And number two, realize that some cars will have a higher amplitude than others. McLaren, Lotus, these car manufacturers have very loud steering. If you had a volume knob, the steering feedback is very high. But other cars like my ND3 Miata, the volume is very low. And it doesn't mean it's not there, it just means that you have to pay closer attention, be light with your steering, be light with your hands, and feel what comes through at a lower volume. In the same way that you can enjoy music, either blasting your eardrums or more as background music, the same thing applies to steering. And those are the three things that I think will deepen your understanding and your appreciation of steering. I do feel that steering is one of the most important parts of a vehicle, of driving, because it is the single input that gives you the most information back. And if you think about, let's use logical extremes here. If you are in a plane, when you're flying at 600 miles an hour, cruising at 35,000 feet, it's not really fun. It's just like you're in this insulated, mostly, there's a white noise, background noise, but it's pretty quiet. There's not much G-force or acceleration. You're just kind of cruising. But the takeoff and the landing comparatively are going to be more interesting because you have the G-force, you have the change, you can feel as the plane takes off, you feel yourself getting pushed into the seat and pulled backwards because the plane is accelerating, and so on. The same thing with driving a car. If I could just teleport myself from here to the next street, the next intersection, without feeling anything, just silently on a plane, that's not very fun. But if I'm driving a car and it's actually talking to me and I can feel G-forces, I can feel communication through the wheel, that instantly becomes more fun. And again, I would argue that the steering is the single input, the single part of the vehicle that talks to you the most if you are willing to pay attention and if you understand steering. Transmission, brake, throttle, there's a little bit there, but not nearly as much. It's primarily feeling the chassis through the seat of your pants and the steering. And I'd argue that by paying attention to those two things, you're going to enjoy driving so much more, and it's going to make you a better driver as well. Let me know what you think with a comment down below. Much love. I'll see you in the next one.